types of staff in your insurance agency, and a lot of agents don't look at 4 different types of staff. They only look at people, and you have to look at all 4. You have technology, automation, people, and processes, and you have to be ready to make sure that all 4 of those types of staff are taken care of in your agency.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this information and wisdom-packed audio session. This session is taught by Dr. Billy R. Williams, CEO of the Williams Family Investment Group. Currently, a group of 160-plus partner insurance agencies that generate over $1 billion a year in new and renewal insurance premiums. Make sure you download this session to your mobile device so you can listen and re-listen at your convenience.
Hey everyone, it's Billy Williams. Appreciate you being here. Today we're going to do overcoming a lack of quality staff in an insurance agency. That is our lunch and learn today. We've got 30 minutes to really pour in some good information for you. So let's get started right away. There are 4 types of staff in your insurance agency, and a lot of agents don't look at 4 different types of staff. They only look at people, and you have to look at all 4. You have technology, automation, people, and processes, and you have to be ready to make sure that all 4 of those types of staff are taken care of in your agency. Again, 4 types of staff: technology, automation, people, and processes. The 4 things that kill quality staff are lack of training on technology tools, not having established KPIs or guidelines on how to do something, lack of role play. And when I say role play, most people only think of conversations. They don't think of role play as in going through the entire workflow. What button do you push in this piece of technology? What paper do you make sure is printed? What e-signature are you requiring? Who do you talk to? Who do you hand this off to next? So lack of role play encompasses all of the steps of the workflow. And then finally, emotion. So the 4 things that kill quality staff in an agency: lack of training on technology tools, not having established KPIs, lack of role play, and then emotion. Let's start with technology first. Use email templates with agency standards and coverage consequences to help take the emotion out of your staff's conversations. You want to train, spot check, and retrain how your staff utilizes technology at least twice a month. Just spot check them. Walk through and say, hey, show me how you did that quote. Show me how you submitted that policy. Show me how you made sure that binder was ready. Show me that. So you want to train, spot check, and retrain how your staff utilizes technology at least twice a month. Let's go over the email templates. I'm going to go to the endorsement process, property endorsement email with coverage consequences. So instead of relying on my team to say exactly what I need them to say every single time, we put these tables on our emails. And when we're discussing something, whether it's a payment or it's a review or we're doing a quote, we'll say, look, you have this weakness compared to our agency standards. So here's the coverage. Here's the current coverage limit. Here's the agency minimum standard, and more importantly, here's the consequence of inadequate coverage. Guys, it's this consequence of inadequate coverage that really makes things work, because your staff, believe it or not, they're not saying the things that you want them to say. They're not saying it in the way you want them to say it. So by having your email templates, having your documents, your forms actually list the coverage consequences or list the problems with not having the recommended coverage, you're going to find that your staff's emotions about those conversations are better controlled. And then you can really finish it off that way when you're talking to a customer, because the customer is receiving the communication you need them to receive. So for technology, and again, there's a lot more, but I only have 30 minutes to talk to you guys. So for technology, my recommendation is go out, use the email templates with agency standards and coverage consequences to help take the emotion out of your staff's conversation, and train, spot check, and retrain how your staff utilizes technology at least twice a month. Let's talk about automation. You need to set up automated workflows to support the task your staff refuses to do or they're weak at doing. Let me give you some examples. Use your CRM or your agency management system to automatically send out insurance review forms for upcoming renewals instead of handing a list to your people saying, hey, call these people and let's schedule some reviews. Use ringless voicemail when staff won't make outbound calls. As an example, in our lead process, I want you to make 3 calls within the first minute of receiving a lead. Well, staff will usually make 1, then they'll send an email. If the person marked on there, they can get a text message. They might send a text message, but they're usually not going to make 3 calls. So we help them out by using ringless voicemail. Person will make the initial phone call. 10 or 15 seconds later, we'll send out the ringless voicemail. If the person didn't answer, we'll send out the ringless voicemail, and then we'll have the person make the second call. And a lot of times, guys, we have to have ringless voicemail make 2 of the 3 calls because staff will only make 1 call. And then we may have to use that ringless voicemail again or leave a voicemail again later in the afternoon. But this is just an example. Use ringless voicemail when staff won't make outbound phone calls. Create coverage consequence videos when staff is weak at explaining coverage. See, a lot of times your staff want to do what's right, but because you didn't train them, you didn't spend time with them, you didn't help them to really learn these conversations, they avoid conversations. People naturally avoid what they feel like is going to embarrass them. You do know that, right? People avoid what they feel like will embarrass them. So they will avoid these conversations because they don't know what to say. So we use coverage consequence videos. Here's another nice thing about the coverage consequence videos. If you guys decide to go out and do that, it's like a YouTube short or Instagram reel or something like that, right? Just a 30, 45-second video of a licensed person explaining the coverage consequences, explaining the weaknesses. Why a licensed person? Because now my non-licensed person can send out that email with that video, or they can send out that video because my non-licensed person is not explaining coverage. It's my licensed person that's explaining coverage. My non-licensed person is just sending out the video. So that's another thing, another way we use automation technology to help with the weaknesses of our staff. Next, use an appointment calendar link on emails when staff is weak at following up on quotes. How many times do you have someone sitting there, or you have your staff sitting there, and there's like 7 quotes on their desk, and they're like, oh, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to get back to them. I'm going to get back to them. Whenever they send out their quote, or they send out their follow-up email, or they send out their text message, you should have an appointment calendar link on emails when staff is weak at following up on quotes. One of the tools that we use is a tool called Linktree. Okay, so what Linktree basically is an online website that shows, so here's the rocks. I said I was going to show you mine. I'll show you one even better. I'll show you the rocks. So what Linktree allows you to do is put all of these different resources under one link. So instead of sending out 4 or 5 different things, like I want you to send out your electronic business cards, send out the appointment scheduler, send out the video that introduces your agency, all of that stuff. You put it on one Linktree, and then the person can just go on and click on that particular thing. So we use Linktree to help offset the fact that our people won't follow up, because now our customers are getting all of our resources. If you need to schedule an appointment, click here. You want to see the agency introduction video, click here. You want to log into the web portal, go ahead and click here, but it's all under one link. So that really does benefit you a lot. That's one of the pieces of tools or automation that we use to help offset that. But this was appointment calendar link on emails when staff is weak at following up on quotes. Now, the next couple of things I'm going to go over are just my opinion based on how much I have done in this industry, how many people I've hired, how many people I've fired, how many agencies I've worked with. So these are my opinions. They have no basis in fact other than what you decide They are, and as far as importance, they're only as important as you decide. Okay, but they're my opinion. When we talk about people, because remember, you have four types of staff in an agency: technology, automation, people, processes. When it comes to people, today's worker is much more emotional about the work they do than workers from the past generations. That's my opinion. When I was coming up, you just did the work. You didn't fuss about it. You didn't complain about it. You didn't moan about it. You did the work. And if you did moan about it, you did it under your breath so that no one would hear you. But today's worker is a little bit more, they're a little more emotional about the work that they do. And anytime you put emotion in something, then you're going to have problems. Let's just be honest. You're going to have problems because now you have to deal with their emotions on top of all the work that has to happen. Next, they tend to require more training, more feedback, and more structure than past generations. So you have to utilize screen capture PDFs. We use a tool called Tango. And you have to have more video so that they can watch it. And that's why we use a tool called Loom. Guys, a lot of this has to do with just the world. I mean, the fact that we used to go to 5-hour meetings, and then they got cut to 1-hour meetings. We used to sit on the phone for 2 and 3 hours in a conference call. Now, if you're longer than 10 or 15 minutes, that's a problem. Our YouTube videos, when I was coming up, when I first started watching YouTube, I'd watch an hour video, an hour and a half video. Now everything's cut down to 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. So I don't think our people have a work ethic problem as much as they have a work capacity problem. Okay. I don't, and again, this is my opinion. I don't think you can load the amount of work on people that you used to be able to load on previous generations. I know for me, you could work me 5-6 hours, straight with no break. And I was used to that. That was the workload. I'm retired Army. So, of course, I would march 20, 25, 30 miles. And the military doesn't do 25-mile ruck marches anymore. Now they do 5 and 10-mile ruck marches, right? It's just a different time. So, again, I don't feel that people have a work ethic problem. I feel that they have a work capacity problem. So the work has to be in smaller increments because I think people tend to get overwhelmed by the volume of work, even though we may not consider it a volume. Us old guys that have been around forever, right? I'm 61. So us old guys that have been around forever, we don't consider working 4, 5, 6, 7 hours straight as a lot of work. But a lot of the people that we hire do. So they need to be better trained, which is why we use tools like Tango, Tango. Tango is a tool that allows you to go out and create a screen capture PDF while actually clicking on buttons and while doing different things. It's a phenomenal tool. You guys need to go check it out. Tango, if you have not checked it out. And why we have to create training videos that our people can go back and watch over and over and over. Used to be we had a job aid book. You guys remember that? We had a job aid book and everything was written out. There were no pictures, there were no videos, there was no PDF, there were no screen captures, there was nothing. There was 15 sentences that explained how to do it. And that's the way it worked. Unfortunately, that is not the world we live in now. Now you do have to have screen capture so people can visually see what you need them to do. You do have to have videos where people are watching it and can go back and rewatch it and know that it's being done. So it's not that we don't have quality staff. It's just our staff has changed. And we, the older folks that have been around a while, we are not adapting a lot of times to this. So we bring in people and we expect them to work the way we worked, and we expect them to do the things that we did, and we expect them to act the way that we act and think the way that we think. Well, you know what? If they had been that awesome and that good, we'd probably end up working for them versus them working for us. That's not to say we can't train them, but don't have that expectation. So you have to use technology and automation to support the work assigned to them. Yet one of the biggest and most effective things you can do in the insurance industry is to use agency coverage standards to make it easy for your people to identify policy weaknesses. Remember, I said emotion. So we want to teach our staff to consistently look for the agency's minimum recommended coverage standards. The agency should have them first and foremost. And the nice thing about this is your non-licensed people should be trained on them just like your licensed people, because your non-licensed staff can actually go in, identify those weaknesses, and then make sure that they assign a task to the licensed people to say, I was looking at this person's policy, they didn't have this. I was looking at their person's policy, they're missing this or they're shorter on this. Remember the three types of weaknesses that customers have: no coverage, low coverage, and missing a supporting policy. So our non-licensed people should be able to go in and be able to identify no coverage, low coverage, and missing a supporting policy on all of our customer records. Our non-licensed staff should be trained to create a task for the licensed staff member in the agency and request that the licensed staff member contact the customer to discuss the coverage. Again, our non-licensed people can drive a lot of the activity. So while we're saying we don't have quality staff, what we really don't have a lot of times are quality processes. Let's be honest. That's what we really don't have, because our process should include KPIs. Our process should include training and retraining and spot checking and retraining. Our KPIs should include screen captures of what this process should look like. It should include videos of what this process should look like. So again, a lot of times while we're saying we don't have quality staff, what we don't have is we don't have staff that thinks the way we think. We don't have staff that grew up the way we grew up and has the work ethic that we have. So we say staff sucks. No, it's just a different type of staff. Most agencies are underutilizing non-licensed staff. Virtual assistants, non-licensed staff, outsourced staff, whatever you want to call them. Guys, you have to start utilizing that type of staff in your agency. Nowadays, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, on what side of the fence you're on, if you're the staff person, then it's fortunate that wages are out of whack a lot of times with the work that you do. The amount of work that you do or that you're asked to do is so minimal compared to what you were asked before. So for the employee, it's a wonderful thing. But for the employer, it sucks, because now we feel like we have to hire two people to do the work that one person used to do. We feel like I can't hand off the volume of work and expect it to get done the way that it used to get done or with the quality that it used to get done. And again, we have to come back to it's a different workforce. The workforce today requires more training, more everything. I have 11 tasks that we train every non-licensed and licensed, I say non-licensed, but and licensed person. This is kind of like our alphabet. You have to have those 26 letters in order to make the English language. Well, this is like our alphabet that we're using to make sure that our agency operates under the same language. Number one, learn agency standards. Everybody in the agency should know the agency standards. My dirty word is cross-sell. I don't believe in the word cross-sell because that means you have to convince somebody to buy something. I believe in policy weaknesses. Hey, this is our standard and you don't meet our standard. Our standards fall into three areas: no coverage, low coverage, or missing a supporting policy. You don't meet our standards. So I need to point it out to you. Now, you can keep that weakness on your policy. You can upgrade to what we want you to upgrade to. It's up to you, but I have to point it out. That's why we have agency standards. Then we teach them to audit a policy looking for agency standards. So every time they interact with a customer, they immediately look at that coverage or look at that page that shows the coverage, and they can identify this person has no coverage, low coverage, or they're missing a supporting policy. If they're non-licensed, they're going to create a task and assign that to the licensed person. If they are licensed, they're going to bring that conversation up and say, hey, you're missing our agency standards in some of the areas of your policy. Then we teach them to complete an insurance review form. Then we teach them to create a task in the agency management system. We teach them to complete a paper quote before I teach them to create a quote in the main quote engine or in the carrier site. because a paper quote allows me to really train them on what to look for, what to ask for. So I go back to every agency that I'm a part of, and I say, look, for the next 2 weeks, we're going back to a paper quote first when you're taking or gathering that quote information, and then we'll load it into the system. But the paper quote allows me to train better. We teach them to do it in the main quote engine if we're using a rater, and then we teach them to use it in the top 3 carrier sites. Then we teach them the 5 main accord forms that we use, because a lot of the issue that you guys are having, you say, I don't have quality staff. No, it's just the staff doesn't know how to do stuff. You never trained them how to actually fill out an accord form. They're winging it. You never trained them on how to do a certificate of insurance properly. They're winging it. So we make sure that we train them on that. Then we teach them how to manage the upcoming renewal process. And then finally, how to manage the cancellation termination process. Well, this is our alphabet. Everybody, this is like our basic training. You guys know I'm a military guy. This is like the basic training. Everybody in the agency has to go through this. So if you guys are serious about taking your staff and turning them into higher quality staff than what they might be right now, start with these 11 tasks. There may be more. You know, I know a lot of agents are so busy saying, well, those are only 11. I have 37 tasks. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Start with one, but, do whatever. But start with our 11 agency standards, audit a policy for standards, complete a review form, create a task in your agency management system, do a paper quote, then our rater, then the carrier sites, complete your 5 main accord forms that you use in the agency, complete a certificate of insurance, learn how to manage the upcoming renewal process, right? Sending out policy review notices, things like that, and then learn how to manage the cancellation termination process. If you teach them the basics of this, everything else you can build on top of. It becomes much easier. So let's summarize. The agency's non-licensed staff should be an investment that generates revenue, not an additional liability or bill. Non-licensed staff combined with good processes, good tech stack, good training and spot checking and role playing will generate more revenue than you ever thought possible. I'm saying non-licensed, but basically it's everybody. Okay, it's everybody. Now I'm going to come back over. I do have a few more minutes, so I'm going to come back over and let's actually go in and look at the review form that I'm discussing here. For those of you that don't know what I'm doing here, this is our Inspire Nation review, our Inspire Nation video and document library. This is where we keep all of our training, all of our membership resources, and all of our partner resources as well. So this is one of our checklists that we use, where you can actually look and see all the different things that are there on the review form. But I actually have one way better than that, one that actually discusses consequences and discusses coverage, and that's going to be found up in module 2, because when you first become a member, we take you through 6 basic modules, right? And so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to module 2, claims, insurance review, fillable forms. So on our review form, what it does is it automatically pulls in, depending on your agency management system, it automatically pulls in the data. So everything that you see with a question mark, it would automatically pre-fill for you, and it pulls in that individual account information. It tells what the current coverage is that the customer has. There we go. So it tells what the coverage is, what the current coverage limit is, and then what the agency minimum standard is. And we send this form out as part of our renewal process. That way the customer is aware of everything that we want them to have. So if we look at this one, here's one that's completed. So this is for auto. There's the coverage limit, and then there's the agency minimum standard. So the customer knows they are below the agency's recommended minimum standard. Guys, this helps eliminate a lot of the emotion that your staff has when it comes to these conversations. Now, you mix this with the wording I showed you earlier, where that coverage consequence is explained, and everything becomes a whole lot easier for you. Whole lot easier, okay? All right. That's my time. That's my 30 minutes. I appreciate you guys being here. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about technology, automation, and I'll go a little bit deeper into some of the tools that we are using. Appreciate you guys for being here. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.